Holy hotballs! The Bitterbirds went to training camp. They sweated out all their alcohol from Saturday night. What a fun day. Well, I wasn't at training camp. I'm in Wildwood. But Mike Owens and Jeremy Burton, they're both here, and they were both there as well. Welcome to the show, the first open practice of the season. How was it? And that lack of hype.
Oh, it was hot, and it was early. I'll tell you what, after a night of drinking, 10 a.m. practice, oh, it's pretty early, especially with the weather conditions. But, Jeremy and I, we toughed it out. We woke up to about, an 8 a.m. alarm clock, made the drive over to the link, sat in our seats. We were in our seats by about 9:15, so we had waited 45 minutes before the practice even started. We got, some glimpses of Carson Wentz doing some exercises before practice started, and boy, it was hot. I mean, we were dripping in sweat, and the alcohol was just pouring out.
Yeah, Mike even jinxed us before. He's like, "Oh, look, the sun's on the other side of the field." I'm like, "Well, the sun moves as the day goes on." Sure enough, not soon, not that much further after. I mean, I was just sitting still and just drenched. My dumbass was wearing a black shirt, but yeah, it was fun to see all the guys. I mean, the lack of hype. Only 18,000 or so people showed up, roughly like 40% of the open practice last year under Chip Kelly. I mean, couple things could be factored in. I mean, it was early. People are at church. People are out having brunch. I mean, it's an early Sunday morning. It's hot. I mean, people want to stay in their AC and just chill, which I don't blame them. But we toughed it out. It was nice to see everybody, and we'll get talking about some guys who stood out and didn't, and so on and so forth.
People were at church. I should have called this show the Book of Doug. Oh man! All right, let's talk about that practice though. The funny thing is, it was later clarified by Dave Spadaro that the first practice last year only got 16,000 people. So the whole thing about people not going to the practice, it was actually a myth. So how about that? All right, let's get into the show. Let's talk about Carson Wentz first. This is who we want to talk about. How was he during the practice, and how about the cheers too? He must have been cheered throughout, right? Probably got the loudest ovation out of everybody.
Yeah, well, once you arrive at the stadium and you see everyone walking in, and the majority of the jerseys for the current players were Carson Wentz. People in Carson Wentz T-shirts. I had a nice Carson Wentz T-shirt that I got down in Sea Isle, and I saw other people with the same one. So obviously they got that T-shirt down in Sea Isle. So Carson Wentz, he was all the hype. Once we got in the stadium, you could tell that everyone was there to see him. People were chanting his name. And then after practice, apparently there was when people were lining up along the field to get his autograph, there was Carson Wentz chants going on. Everyone wanted to get his autograph. So obviously he was the main attraction. And really, no one even cared about Bradford. So, Wentz is really the face of this franchise right now, and pretty crazy for a guy who's the number 3 quarterback on the team.
It was funny, though. At one time, I turned over the mic, and as soon as Wentz, they did a rotation, and did Sam, then Chase, then Wentz, coming in for like 11-on-11 or quarterback drills or 7-on-7s. The first time Carson comes, rounding ovation, and I see Sam Bradford standing in the back, and I say to Mike, how's Sam feel right now? He didn't get any applause, and he's he got the big contract and the starting position. So, yeah, he looked good. I mean, there was ups and downs. There was one lame duck ball thrown I saw, but he still had a couple bombs. It's standard rookie procedure. He got all the hype. I got a good picture of him, pretty close up. We were only a few rows back, so
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it was great.
Ginger Jesus in the flesh, take him to church. The Book of Doug. All right, let's talk about the other quarterbacks now. I mean, obviously this is only one practice, so obviously you can't really take too much consideration into this. Obviously, Ron Brooks, but Chase Daniel, I mean, from what I heard from the reports, from what I heard from you guys, he looked like he was by far a lot better than Bradford.
Yeah, I mean, really the biggest thing that you take away when you go and you look at all three of these quarterbacks, what I took away is when you look at Wentz, I mean, he's got a great build for a quarterback. You can just tell that the guy is an absolute athlete, and just the way that he composed himself throughout the whole practice, the way that he was handling the line of scrimmage, the way that he was communicating with his teammates, you can just tell that the guy is ready to be a leader, and you can see why he's the face of the franchise going forward. The other thing that I noticed then with Chase Daniel is, boy, he's a tiny guy. He's a very tiny guy. I mean miniature, but he does a nice job out there since he knows the offense the best, being in Kansas City before with Doug Peterson. He did a nice job. I was really surprised with his accuracy and his deep ball. That's probably what I took away from Chase Daniel. Then with Bradford, it's really the same old from last year. Just check downs, 15-yard passes. He did throw in a few bombs actually, and it was funny because he threw one bomb for a touchdown. And I think that he was surprised himself, and Peterson was so shocked that Doug Peterson, after he gave him a high five afterwards. So, Bradford didn't throw too many bombs last year, so that was surprising to see. But for the most part, it was the same Bradford from last year. A lot of checks downs, 15-yard passes, average stuff. So that's what I took away from the three quarterbacks.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a great bomb on the left side, I believe. He turned around. Doug's like, "Yeah, buddy, there you go. Hope you have more of them this year." Well, one thing I liked about Carson, obviously he stands well in the pocket. I liked that. I liked how even on the 11-on-11s, he would talk to his linemen and kind of make a call, kind of read the defense as best he could. And then, Chase Daniel, man, that one bomb to Hunter Sharp took Riley Cooper's old number 14, undrafted rookie out of Utah State, just dropped out of the sky in his breadbasket over the shoulder grab. It was really a pretty ball. It surprised me from Chase Daniel. I mean, he is only 6 foot tall, but hey, he can sling it, 50 yards, definitely, no problem. And like Mike said, Sammy was same old Sammy, check down Sammy. No, overall, the quarterbacks just they did their thing. It's only one practice, but I liked what I saw overall.
Yeah, here's what I'll say about Chase Daniel from the games that I watched. I scouted his 2 starts for PhillyInfluencer.com, and the thing that you'll see from him is, sure, he'll take his shots downfield, but he's mostly a guy that's not really going to make mistakes. He's not going to take fit the ball into tight windows per se. He's going to let the defense win the game for you. So he is like a perfect type of backup quarterback to have. As a starter, I don't know so much, but he's a guy that can definitely be thrust into the situation, if your starter goes down. So I would be confident in Chase Daniel. I don't think there's really much of a talent drop off, to be honest with you. So let's move on to some guys who stood out from what you guys noticed in camp practice from Sunday. So just, you don't have to list 3 or 4 names, whoever you guys had your eye on and thought made some plays.
Yeah, I'll go with the offensive side of the ball here because we all know that the Eagles are really lacking depth at the wide receiver position. And the one guy that I really wanted to check out was Nelson Aguilar. I wanted to see, does he still have those flashes that we saw at some points last year during his rookie season? Even though it was a disappointing one, he did have some flashes. And, the one thing that I saw in this open practice is that, Nelson Aguilar, he still has it. He has that speed. And when he runs his routes to perfection, and his ability to cut on his routes is really impressive. So I would say that I was definitely impressed with Nelson Aguilar. And that's a good sign because the Eagles really need him to step up this season if they want to kind of take a step forward on offense.
Another thing that was interesting about Aguilar is he was returning a couple kicks, and he really showed some acceleration in returning those kickoffs. So I mean, I wouldn't I wouldn't mind having him back there instead of Josh Huff if he might not even make the team. Um, bye. Darren Sproles has not missed a beat. He's 33 years old. He's still little mighty mouse there. He's so quick and accelerate. I'll go with the guy on defense. I think Leonis McKelvin is all but locked for our starting corner spot. He was deflecting passes all over, really being feisty. Good bump and run coverage, in the first 5 yards, covering the receiver. So I liked him on defense.
Okay. Yeah, getting to Aguilar for just a second, I was listening to Frank Reich's press conference from yesterday, and he was saying, a couple of things about how he thought Chip Kelly's up-tempo attack actually hurt his progression last year as a receiver. So he's the big X factor heading into the season. If he could step up and show and play up to some potential as, being that first-round pick, that obviously makes the receiving core just look a little bit better. And, that's key because out of all the receivers, ranked in Pro Football Focus last year, Aguilar was dead last. So can only improve from all the way from the bottom. So start from the bottom, now you're here. So how about disappointing players? Who did you guys think, weren't playing up to their potential?
Yeah, the disappointment. First I'll go with Ja'Cory Shepherd. He was the guy last year who was getting a lot of hype during the preseason. He was a late round pick last year, and then he suffered that season-ending injury. So, he battled back from that, and now he's back here. And I wasn't impressed with him. He was, dropping a lot of passes in the drills that they were doing. So I was not impressed with him. He's actually, on the bubble for making the team. He might not even make it the way that he was playing. I guess I would say really the biggest disappointment and kind of the biggest shock for me was that Eric Rowe was not on the field much at all. He was really, a lot of times, running with the second unit, and when he was in there with the first unit, he was having a lot of trouble, playing on the bump and run. He was getting a lot of penalties. You could just tell there was some frustration there. So that was a surprise for me because I really thought that going into this season, Rowe was going to be our #1 cornerback. Now, that doesn't mean he's not going to be because we all remember, last season during the preseason, Eric Rowe might have had one of the worst preseasons of all time. He was absolutely pathetic. But then he stepped in during the regular season, and he did a pretty decent job. So you can't really judge much off of one training camp practice, and you really can't judge that much off of preseason games as we've seen last year with Rose. So we'll see how he adjusts as the preseason goes along here in training camp. But I would say that I was disappointed in his performance.
Yeah, as far as defense, it's hard to tell, but as far as defense goes, those would be my two guys as well. I'll try and pick a guy from offense. I'm trying to think. I think, given his in the snaps I saw, Wendell Smallwood didn't really. He kind of got bottled up a lot. So I'll just use him as an example. He didn't really break anything out of the running backs. Darren Sproles looked by far the best. Ryan Matthews not suiting up. So I'll say Wendell Smallwood and a couple penalties to some backup offensive linemen like Andrew Gardner. That's all I got.
All right, I'll just throw this name out there because it's interesting to me that just a little bit that they would have Nelson Aguilar and Jordan Matthews back there returning kicks. So I don't know how the Hufflepuff status with the team's going to be. I don't know if he's going to make it or not. We shall see. But he's a guy that I'm going to be having my eye on during the preseason. And he is the most frustrating player that I can remember watching. He'll take a slant pass, say against Tampa Bay. He'll take it all the way to the house. And then there's instances where, say Carolina, where you need that touchdown in the back corner of the end zone, and he can't come up with the catch. So he is. I don't know if he's going to make the team or not, but he is a guy that is in dire straits. So the Hufflepuff. Yeah. All right. So a couple things I also wanted to talk about as well. I found it interesting that they had refs there at practice. They never had that before that I can remember. So you had the reps, and just from what you guys saw, what are some differences between the way Doug runs practice and the way Chip did?
Yeah, the rep thing, I think they do that. I think the reps travel around all the different training camps, so they just get them in there for a few days at everyone's training camp so they can get adjusted to how the reps will call the game and stuff. Also, it's training for the reps to get ready for the season. But honestly, you wouldn't have even known that the reps were there because they really did jack shit. I mean, they were when they were like kicking field goals and stuff. When we were trying to tell if the ball was good or not, and the ref under the goalpost just stood there, didn't even make any signals. So he would have been better just sitting on the toilet and taking his shit because that's what they did, jack shit. But back to your point. What were you saying again? What was the point? I forgot.
Yeah, just differences between the way Chip ran practice.
Oh, right. Yeah, so really with Peterson, he likes to run these lengthy practices. So Peterson, he's been running close to 3-hour practices. He's all about hands-on teaching on the field. So that's what you get with Peterson, and really it's so much like Andy Reid. It's like pretty much a very identical, absolute copy of Andy Reid's method on training camp. But with Chip Kelly, what you had was you had these very fast practices, very fast moving, things happening all over the field. It was hard to really even, pay attention to one thing. And Chip was all about having those fast practices, and then afterward, he was about, making the adjustments in the classroom. So those are really the differences between the two. And from the interviews from the players so far, it seems like most of the players prefer the Peterson type of practices where they actually learn on the field. And I think really where it benefits the players is it benefits the rookie players or the second-year guys, because those are the guys that really need to learn on the job. So I think that's where the Peterson method helps. Really for veteran guys, I don't think it matters what type of training camp you get.
Was there any music?
It was like a kids' day type thing.
Oh.
So and Dave Spadaro was being Dave Spadaro, and it was pretty corny. So there was like kid DJs. Yeah.
Hey, little Max, why don't you pick a song? That's pretty much how it went. But anyone's practice is better than Chip's practice. Come on, let's get real here. The refs, yeah, I noticed. I think two flags. One was a defensive holding on Jalen Mills, and then I think the false start by Andrew Gardner, or maybe it was offensive holding by Gardner. But yeah, I like the way Doug, interacts with the players. Emotional intelligence. Interacts with players. We'll say hi in the hallway, not just look the other way. And the hitting. The hitting. There was a kickoff return where Ja'Cory Shepherd is still feeling the hit from I forget who whacked him, but Ja'Cory Shepherd went down hard. He got popped real good just to add to his woeful day of catching balls in the drill. He couldn't catch anything. He was getting beat all the time. Not a good day for Shepherd. But yeah, I like the way Peterson runs his practice. Obviously, yeah, it's learned from Andy Reid. So I was successful in the past. The only thing I'm missing is going to Lehigh. I love that interaction.
Yeah. So I'll be at the August 14th practice. Can't wait for that. Couldn't make to the one on Sunday, so I don't have any observations that I can make. But let's move on. Let's talk about Weapon X, Brian Dawkins, our favorite Eagle of all time. So he is with the scouting department now, and it's awesome that he's back in the organization. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, this is a really good move for the Eagles organization, and it's an exciting time for all of us Eagles fans. We've always wanted, Dawkins to come back to the team in some way, and I think that, this is how you do it. You bring him back. kind of put him in the scouting department, but the way that Dawkins was talking about this, it seems like he's really going to be learning about the front office too and the way they run a team. So that was interesting to hear. And also seems like Dawkins is really looking to maybe possibly get into the front office someday. He has big dreams. So it's nice to hear that from Dawkins. I mean, we all love him. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's just, great news for the Eagles.
I mean, my all-time favorite Eagle, hands down. I mean, from when he was drafted in '96, I'm only 9 years old. I just instantly got a Dawkins jersey. He was just the way he embodies Philadelphia. He is that exact mentality that we want in Philly sports. He had 2 lockers, all right. He had a Brian Dawkins locker and a Weapon X locker for all his Wolverine apparel there. Such a great, Christian, religious man on the outside, but when it comes to game day, he's an absolute monster. And yeah, it's the best thing that we could have for our scouting department. Someone with his mentality, and he knows what to look for in a defensive back and all players. And I know he might not be so far want to be a coach like he said, but he wants to get in a personnel kind of front office. So this is a perfect step for him, and I'm so happy for him just to be back in Philly. And he's going to be at Fantasy Fest on August 20th. There's going to be a meet and greet. B-Doc and B-West, they'll both be there.
There you go. All right, let's get into some quotes, because he's looking to be just more than a scout, like you guys kind of explained there. Here's what he said. It's not just scouting. I'm trying to grasp the whole gamut of football operations of how a team is run. I'm learning about the scouting part of it, the terminology and all those things, but sometimes it's either you have an eye or you don't, and I've been blessed to have an eye to be able to see talent. So if I could help in that respect, I'd love to do that. But also, I want to learn everything about running a football team. And he kind of talked about how he wants to move on to something bigger, and here's what he said about that. Bigger is bigger. I don't know what bigger is. I just know bigger is not where I'm standing right now. Whatever bigger is, then that's what we're shooting for. Every step of my way in football, I did the exact same thing. Pop Warner, high school, college, pros, and now hopefully front office. Work your way up. So awesome quotes from Brian Dawkins. And the example that I always think about when I think about great players kind of moving into the front office, Ozzie Newsome of the Baltimore Ravens, one of the best in the league right now, so might be the best. And the way Baltimore drafts, they're always drafting studs. So we'll see how Dawkins kind of progresses throughout his scouting / whatever bigger is going to be in that career of his.
Yeah, I mean, another guy I think of is, John Elway with the Broncos. So, if he can, I mean, could you imagine if, Dawkins, really turned into one of those guys, Newsome or Elway with with the Eagles? I mean, that would be unbelievable. I think really that would be the ultimate goal for every Eagles fan, for him to really take over the team and be that man.
Well, bigger is bigger, and I don't think it gets much bigger than his biceps, because those things are the size of a football. But I mean, I love Dawkins to learn the ropes and eventually become. I mean, what if he eventually becomes like as great as Ozzie Newsome as the GM of the Eagles in the future? I mean, who knows? Sky's the limit for him. He does have a great eye for talent, so we'll see. Hopefully, we get some more talent. And he brings that defense even better. I mean, Jim Schwartz I'm so happy he's here too. Just our defensive mindset. Also, another thing about Jim Schwartz, I loved in the 7-on-7 drills, he lines up on the line of scrimmage, hands on his knees, just eyeing up, looking at the whole defense, seeing it all play out, just evaluating that way how the players are doing. I thought that was really cool. Love Schwartz, love Dawkins. Let's go Birds, baby.
Jim Schwartz, baby, the boss. The boss. Did he have his shades on?
Yes, he did.
Oh,
Of course.
The mob boss. In the flesh. All right. Darren Sproles signed a 1-year extension. This is interesting because he's going to be 35 years old when that contract expires. He said that's going to be the end of his career. At least that's what he said during his little meet-up with reporters. So I'm really excited to see how Doug is going to utilize him, because from what I've seen on tape last year, the way Kansas City kind of used Jamal Charles, kind of used Sharkandrick West, Spencer Ware, they would motion their backs out, they'd put them in the slot, and then they'd run routes. And that's something, obviously, Darren Sproles can do very quick out of the backfield. So get him matched up in space, get him matched up against linebackers. And, that was one of the things that Chip Kelly really disappointed me in is you had this weapon in Darren Sproles, and he never really utilized him up to his capabilities.
Yeah, well, one of the biggest takeaways that I took away from this practice is that, Darren Sproles still plays like he's 21 years old, and that Doug Peterson is going to utilize him all over the field, and he's going to utilize him a lot. Darren Sproles, he looked fresh. He is fast, and, some of the better runs that they had in practice came from Darren Sproles. So you're going to see a lot of Sproles. So, the Sproles news was something that I was very happy about because, if you remember, back in the offseason, people were, talking about possibly trading Darren Sproles, and I was totally against it. I just felt like Sproles is too much of a weapon to have on your team, and he's not even, he may be 35, but he does not play like it. He's still fresh and he's still young, so that's why I like Darren Sproles. So it's it's nice that we can get him for another year here, and especially with Peterson, I think he's going to utilize him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very affordable extension. Definitely think he's well worth it. And I believe, I'm not mistaken, this is Ryan Matthews, last year, second year of two-year deal he signed. So it's good to at least have, a veteran presence like Sproles in the backfield through 2017. Like Mike said, we both observed it. I mean, he was the best running back on the field in practice, breaking runs down the sidelines that would have been a touchdown that, he just stopped short just to conserve energy, I guess. But, it's just he's a great weapon and matchup issue for the defense all the time. I think Doug's going to utilize him very well. He knows how to utilize his players, and he said he's putting no limit on his carries or touches. So, I mean, he's going to be firmly in that rotation at running back. We hope Matthews is healthy to alleviate some. We don't want to overwork Sproles. It's a long season for a 33-year-old back, but I mean, it sure looks like he can handle it. That little guy, only 5'6", it's crazy. I mean, I'm almost a foot taller than him. It's nuts.
Yeah, one of the plays that I love that Doug Peterson was running with the backs is you motion him out of the backfield, you put him in the slot, and this is like around the goal line, like the 10-yard line, and he runs like the quick out. And Darren Sproles running a quick out. How quick he is, how shifty he is, that's touchdowns right there. That is, I can't wait to see how Doug utilizes him. So that's really exciting to think about when the season comes on. All right. Jason Kelce did some ripping yesterday, and I'm not talking about bong rips. I'm talking about DeMarco Murray. So if you read between the lines, he went on he was on 94.1 WIP. He was on the Mike and Ike show during the afternoon, and there was a question that came around asking him, why did the running game last year, why did it fail? And he kind of listed himself. He listed the offensive line, the scheme, the predictability, all these things, and then he got to DeMarco Murray. And here's what he said. Let me see if I can find it real quick. All right. So I don't think necessarily we had the best back that we had a few years ago either. There's a lot of things that played into that. So obviously if you read between the lines, he's obviously referencing that LaShawn McCoy was a better running back for Chip Kelly's system than Murray. I'm going to chastise one person over the other, he said, but also admitted it's more than one person. So what are your guys' thoughts on Jason Kelce's comments?
Yeah, I mean, I give Kelce respect. I mean, the comments are true. The LaShawn McCoy was definitely the better running back for Chip Kelly's system because, McCoy is, such a shifty back, and he's able to do that east to west running. And they tried to do it with DeMarco Murray, but Murray's just not fit for that type of running. So, yeah, I agree with what Kelce said there.
I totally agree with Kelce. And I also like how he put himself in that because he had a very, very down year from 2014 to 2015. I mean, in 2013 and 14, Kelce was one of the best, arguably, top 5, top 10 center. He was great, and then he really fell off the map. And one thing I noticed is he didn't really put a lot of weight on, it seemed, looking at him in practice. So, I'm hoping he can still, fit, Doug's scheme as well. He's more utilized, Doug, to using a 300-pound center, whereas, Kelce might be around 280. But, as far as DeMarco Murray goes, I mean, he just didn't fit Chip's scheme. Obviously, LaShawn McCoy rushed for over 1,600 yards the one year in 13. So I don't see DeMarco Murray having a great year at all this year with kind of a bad team in Tennessee. Don't draft him in fantasy, please, everybody. And plus, they brought in the Heisman Trophy winner, Henry, from college. So, yeah, no, DeMarco Murray, that was an abysmal signing, and it all points back to Chip. He ruined our season last year, and I hate him. I
know you do. You just continue to rip. You rip him more than you rip that bong of yours. That's for sure. So yeah, Kelce. He did say on the interview that he did gain 10 pounds this offseason. So, it's funny because Sam Bradford says he gained 5 pounds and it doesn't look like it, and then Kelce doesn't look like he gained anything either. So we shall see. So here's what he said that I thought was interesting about Kelly's offense. He's like, when teams go slow, it's predictable because you can kind of time the snap, and then when teams go fast, it's predictable as well because you can time the snap. And something that I've made a point of is I like the tempo, but you got to switch it up. It's like a pitcher in baseball. You're not just going to throw fastballs all day. You got to mix it up, change your speeds, throw changeups, throw some curveballs, throw some sliders. And he kind of talked about that a little bit. And when talking about the predictability on offense, Kelce talked about how McCoy was still able to pick up yards in 2013 when he posted 1,607 on the ground. That was when the offensive line was at full strength. But here's the quote that he said. The running back was in shotgun and the defense knew where it was going, and we still put up yards. So there's some truth to that. Obviously, it was Kelly's first year in the league, so it was just a little bit different back then. He kind of took the league by storm. So, and the other thing, since Kelce kind of put blame on himself for last year's debacle, he talked about what he did during the offseason. And he said, we've studied a lot of film. We're going to try and make sure that I'm putting myself in a better situation from a technique standpoint. I've also added about 10 pounds right now, hopefully 15 when the season starts. So keep hitting that 5, guys. Jason, we'll get going pretty soon. All right, the other one doing some ripping last week. This is going to draw Jeremy's ire. Jason Peters talking some shit on Chip Kelly.
Oh, yeah. I'll let Jeremy, take the mic on this one.
I mean, yeah, he just basically ripped into Chip Kelly and how much he likes how Doug interacts with the players, and I mean, because Chip wouldn't even look at you in the hallway. I mean, yeah, and he might have been banged up a little bit, but part of the reason I think Peters knew we were going nowhere. He just hated playing for Chip Kelly. I think he had a deep hated, passionate hatred for him. And a veteran player like that, you can't do that. I mean, Chip, what more can I say? He ruined our team last year.
All right, so here's what Peters said. A couple quotes. The last couple years, there wasn't a lot of vets, and any vet that stood up and had something to say, we got rid of them. Doug was a player here. He understands veteran players and understands the game. So I think it's better. He also kind of talked about how the practices took a toll on the players, eventually wore them down. The same practices that we did in training camp were the same spring practices, exactly the same. So it's pretty much we had training camp the whole offseason. Even OTAs were the exact same practice, kind of wore us down. Obviously, Peters was a guy last year that constantly was injured. Every game it seemed like he left with some type of nagging injury. And then he also explained the simplicity of Kelly's offense kind of catching up to them. Last year, after having a couple 10-6 years, he says, I mean, this is the National Football League, and if the running back is still left and you're running the zone read, where do you think the ball is going? To the right. They caught up to us. We had some good years there back-to-back. Then last year we had that down year. We just needed to change a little bit, especially with quarterback Sam Bradford back there. They know he's not going to run it, so it kind of put our hands behind our back. He later said, the coaches called the play and we executed it, but when the opponents know, and they're professionals too, and they know what the play is, it's tough. So Jason Peters speaking out.
Yeah, I mean, it really makes you wonder then. Yeah, Peters last year when he was getting banged up in those games, he's probably thinking to himself, why am I going to go back in the game when I don't really care for Chip Kelly? So, it makes me wonder if Peters just decided to sit out some games because he didn't want to play for the coach. But I mean, a lot of those things that Peters said. They're true with Dick Kelly being a dictator, and we all saw it. If a veteran player spoke up, Chip Kelly got rid of him. But like you were saying earlier, Adrian, I really think that the Chip Kelly, one of his biggest downfalls here was not adjusting his tempo, and I think that kind of affected how everything else played out because last season their offense, they got into a spunk. And when your offense gets into a funk like that, you can't get out of it by just keeping that fast-paced offense up. So I agree that now in San Francisco, Chip Kelly is going to have to figure out a way to adjust his tempo and use it to his advantage when he can. But when the offense is sputtering, he's got to find a way to slow it down.
Well, guess what? He's too damn stubborn to change his ways, so he's not going to change his ways, and San Fran's going to be awful. Yeah, we ran the same snap count every time. Yeah, I mean, Bradford was like a statue back there, obviously coming off 2 ACL injuries, and Peters is right. Yeah, you can't keep up that tempo, and it will wear you down, and everything he says about, it doesn't matter how many snaps the defense run, yeah, Chip, that's bullshit. I mean, defense, in essence, played like a whole extra game or two by the season's end with all the play snaps that were on the field. But yeah, I mean, Doug, compared to Chip, he's got NFL offensive coordinator, coaching experience, positional coaching experience in the NFL, played in the NFL under great head coaches, whereas Chip had 0 NFL experience. So that also has something to do with it. The league caught up to him, and that was his downfall.
Yeah, the one game that I thought Chip Kelly did a great job in switching up the tempo was the Jets game, and that was really the only game where he kind of did it. He ran some slow, and then he kind of picked up the tempo when he had to, and that's what you got to do. And I think that's the way he needs to be successful. He needs to stop being so stubborn, and if he does that, I think he might find some success in San Francisco. The problem is that roster is pretty bad. So I don't know how much if he's going to run it fast, he will be back at Oregon or wherever he wants to go in college. So those are my thoughts on Chip Kelly. Just real quick. He's not here anymore. We don't really need to talk about him any further. So let's get into final thoughts time. Good show today, though. Birds went to camp, sweated out their alcohol, and we did some ripping today.
Oh, yeah. I guess, one final thought that I have here is talk about Jeremy's long-lost brother, Trey Burton.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, I'll tell you what. Out of the guys on offense that were really utilized the most, I would say it would probably be Sproles and Burton. Burton was catching passes all over the field, so he's kind of a guy to keep an eye out during the preseason because I'm interested to see how they're going to utilize him in this offense. He's a guy that's really mainly been a special teams guy under Chip Kelly, but I think under Doug Peterson and Frank Reich, you're really going to see Burton become a player that kind of makes a little bit of an impact on the offensive side of the ball. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see Burton maybe appear in the red zone for some plays and try to get a few touchdowns out of him.
Yeah, I meant to mention him during the show. My brother from another mother. He did look great, and Frank Reich was praising him in one of his talks, and I think he can definitely be utilized in like a specialty kind of maybe H-back, fullback kind of, and then 3 tight end sets, or even throw him in there in a 2 tight end set if if you don't have Selleck in there. But I definitely think Burton's going to have more of an impact in the receiving game than Selleck, where Selleck might be used more as a blocker, and then Ertz and Burton will be our number one pass catching tight ends. Yeah, he's a stud. I really enjoyed going to practice. Looking forward to a couple more weeks and going on August 14th. And the first preseason game, we are only, 9 days away next Thursday?
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah. All right, just to dive into Burton just a little bit here, because the misconception about the Doug Peterson offense is the fullback. Anthony Sherman was their fullback last year. He really wasn't utilized as much as you might think. Sure, they had some I formation plays, but not really run a lot. It was a lot of more like 11 personnel is basically the base now in the NFL, but a lot of 11 personnel, a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets. But they also ran some 3 tight end sets. So the things that he would do with the other tight ends, not named Travis Kelce, you had Demetrius Harris, you had James O'Shaughnessy, I think that's what their names are. You'd have Harris line up in the backfield as like a halfback, and I think that's what we're going to see with Burton. So Burton's going to be blocking, he's going to be out of the backfield running some routes, and that's what I think we'll see with him. So he could be, no one's talking about him. He's flying under the radar, but he could be a sneaky good offensive weapon this year. So I can't wait to see him. Dude, Jeremy said it. Next Thursday, first preseason game. I can't wait. Oh, Carson Wentz, baby, in the flesh. Ginger Jesus, the Book of Doug. I can't wait. The Bitter Birds. We're going to be covering that game, obviously. So that's it for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Let us know what your comments are below. If you guys went to practice, who are some guys you thought looked pretty good? Who are some guys you didn't think looked so good? So let us know. For Mike Owens, Jeremy Burton, I'm Adrian FedQ. We're out. Later.
Later.